Welcome to Club Soda's Mindful Drinking Festival. We're online, global, and as always, absolutely free. Hi, I'm Drew, and I'm one of the co-founders of Club Soda.
And I'm Laura, the other co-founder of Club Soda. We help you change your drinking in ways that help you live well. So whether you're looking to cut down, stop for a bit, or quit, you can find what you need from podcasts and books and courses on joinclubsoda.com. This festival, we've brought you an amazing lineup from over 100 people from across the world.
And our programme this time really is global.
Every day starts down under with me, Sarah. As well as organising the festival in Australia, I spend my time looking for alcohol-free alternatives and tips for people who choose not to drink, but who still want to live a social, fun and adventurous life.
And I'll be wrapping up each day here in the States. I'm Amanda, your US festival host and coordinator, and I'm also a mindset coach who helps women change their relationship with alcohol so that they can start living their most authentic life.
Each day with a rolling programme of inspirational panels, conversations, social events, and opportunities to discover new low and low alcohol drinks.
So whether you want inspiration to change your drinking,
Or to connect with other people,
or you want to discover and enjoy a new low and no alcohol drink,
The Mindful Drinking Festival is for you.
cheers!
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 cheers.
Cheers. Hi, ladies.
Hello. Hello.
So I'm Emily, and I am here to chat with Shari Hampton from Served Up Sober and Kirsten Walker from Sober Brown Girls. And we're going to talk about how we can all make our sober and mindful drinking events and spaces more inclusive. Welcome, ladies. I'm really excited to get to chat with you. And I'm going to start and just have you each introduce yourself and tell us just a little bit about yourself and your platform. And Shari, I'm going to start with you.
Oh, awesome. Thanks for having me here. My name is Shari Hampton. I'm the founder of Served Up Sober. And Served Up Sober has been in existence for about 3 years. We curate holistic spaces and events for women of color who are sober and sober curious. I'm also a recovery coach, and She Recovers designated coach. And I'm happy to be here and have this conversation. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Shari. All right, Kirsten, over to you.
Hi, thank you so much for having me as well. I'm Kirsten Walker, founder of Sober Brown Girls. Sober Brown Girls was just a space and a blog just created just to add another face to women of color in sobriety. It's just a safe place for not just women in sobriety, but women also that are sober curious. Because I just wanted to make a point that we do recover as well, and we need to be seen in the space as well. So that's where it was birthed from. Thank you so much for having me.
That's awesome. So sobriety has taken on its whole own brand on social media, especially the last few years. How do you think the sobriety landscape has changed for you personally, not only as a thought leader, but as, a consumer of Instagram, of social media? Shari, I'll start with you again.
Oh, wow. It has changed drastically. When I first came on board, just at the beginning of 2016, there were just a few of us, just a few of us sprinkled in here and there. It's so weird. I would often tease that when I came on, for some reason, I thought that there weren't any other sober accounts. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna be the only one. And it was wonderful to see other accounts there, but there weren't that many accounts that were African American or even women of color. There just weren't a lot. And so to see it grow over the past 3 years has been just remarkable. It's growing. There are more of us here. We're popping up. We're here. We are here. And I think that it's benefiting the community. So we've seen some growth.
Yeah.
We still need more.
For sure. Kirsten, have you seen the same?
And for me, I'm the newbie. I'm one of the newbies. So I've been within the community since January. I'm just hit my 6-month mark. So baby. So my experience is I'm a social media girl. I'm an introvert, so I'm always on social media, and just was looking for just who else is out there that looks like me, that's feeling like me, so that's kind of how I've seen it. And even just in my short time, it's just I see it's growing. I see it's growing, and I see where in the beginning maybe it was very, very small, but it's popping, it's growing.
So you saw a need and you filled it.
Yeah.
I love that. I think that's great. So what are some of the challenges? I think that, that's been a question, especially recently, that's really come up in the recovery field is what are the specific challenges that people of color face in recovery specifically and in asking for help, both online and in the rooms? And Kirstin, I'll start with you this time. Since you're new, I think this is really timely.
Yeah, I think that there is, with people of color, I think that there's, a bit of, there's a bit of shame with coming, out and saying, hey, I have this problem. Especially when you look at Black women, because we're, strong Black women. You always see that, you always see that out there. And now you're coming out here and saying, hey, I'm in need. So I think that we're seeing that now. We're starting to come out of that. We want to voice our issues, and we want to bring anybody else along that's out there as well that needs the help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How about you, Shari? What are some of the challenges you've seen over the last few years?
I think one of the biggest challenges is acceptance. I think that not only from the sober community, but from our community, it is so taboo to be able to openly admit that you have a problem, to openly admit that you're struggling with addiction. It's just not something that the community does. We take our problems to church, and so to be able to openly say, I'm in recovery, or I'm battling with this, I'm struggling with this. It's new. So I think it starts with us first. We're just really don't feel safe to do it. And I think it's an internal battle, as well as when we do say, okay, this is something we're going to do, we don't see ourselves represented. So I think it's kind of dual there.
And I think too, that has a lot to do with growing up. I know for me, I didn't hear, that person may have had a problem, and that's just how they act. That's just how they behave. And you didn't talk about that. You didn't talk about depression or anxiety or, a drinking problem. So, what you don't talk about growing up, or what you don't hear about, you're afraid, when you get older, to say, hey, I got this issue going on.
Right. If you didn't see where anyone was going for help, how would you know where to go for help? Right. So that brings, to a good, just general question. In general, how can the current sober landscape, when you look on Instagram, how can it be more inclusive? And if you can talk about the difference between diversity and inclusion, because it's really, I think there's a big difference there and my only experience, obviously, like I'm a white chick, I recognize the privilege of just being, and the only experience I have is as a woman working with men and feeling harassed, feeling those microaggressions, but being told, no, this is a very diverse workplace. We have a great sexual harassment policy in place, and not being heard. And so if you could talk about that a bit, even if there are sober accounts, if there's sober coaches, sober influencers, whatever you want to call them, who preach diversity, like what is the difference between diversity and inclusion? Shari, do you want to take that one?
I'll take it.
Okay.
I mean, I think you described it perfectly, but there's a difference between being asked to being invited and being included. It's not the same. So I think that you have to continue to amplify Black voices, not only for podcast interviews, but actually for leadership roles. When you look at what happens in AA, and I'll just use AA as an example, or any 12-step meeting, how many African-American leaders of the group, you may see someone that's controlling the money that night, or maybe they're working in the coffee shop or whatever, but are they actually facilitating the group on a regular basis? And so I think what we have to look at is not only inviting African Americans, but also including them in leadership positions, where they're more part of the panel discussions, more part of the webinar discussions, but from a leadership role. So that's where I think the difference is, where there's a difference between being invited and then truly being included in the conversation. I think that's where we have to start.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure.
Yeah.
Kirsten, do you have anything to add to that as far as?
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. Representation matters. So it means a lot when, like she said, the lead is, we have to see more brown and Black lead in the community. I think it's nice. It's definitely nice to be invited to a podcast, to trust, we want to make sure that we can trust our stories and that our stories are accepted in the space. We want to be, because, you look at sobriety, and sobriety is such a personal experience. It's such, there's a lot of, like we said, a lot of shame associated with it. We are divulging so much of our personal life and trusting, these spaces with our stories. And we just want to make sure that they're respected, they're honored, and we're just not ornaments for what's going on right now in the world. We want to really be included. We want a seat at the table, and we don't want the legs or the chair kicked from underneath us. We definitely want that seat.
Yeah. And I think it's important too to recognize, you're also not the white woman whisperer. It's not your job to make me, more inclusive. I need to do the work to do that. Right. And that's, I think, something that people are really waking up to too, which I love. I love that we're having these discussions, because this is what it comes down to. And even very simple things of looking at my kids' books, and granted, my kids are a little older now, but how many characters in their books are people of color? Not many. And it's easy to go to that place of, oh, well, that's what's on the shelf. But no, I need to go do the work to find those. And so I think it's bringing it back to us in the sober community to say, this is what it looks like. And that's kind of why I wanted to go into the diversity versus inclusion. And that's the perfect explanation, is being invited and being included. There's a big difference. And I think that's a great place to segue into, why is it still so important to come together, as women of color, not to be exclusive, but to have a safe space that's just for you. So can you talk about why it's really vital for people of color to come together in their sober journey? And Shari, I'll start with you.
I think that Kirsten spoke to it. You have to see yourself represented. It's just being able to understand that healing is for us too. It's sometimes when you come into the space and you look at, especially holistic, let's just use holistic modalities, for example, acupuncture, yoga, chiropractic work, you don't really see a lot of Black folk represented. And I think that the more that you put yourself out there and you say, this is the modality that I'm using, the more that you can see that representation, the better it is. I think it's critical that we see ourselves recovering. Yeah. Because if we don't see ourselves recovering, we won't necessarily believe that recovery is possible for us. That it's something that's available to those folk over there. So I think that it's crucial. So when you see, I love it when we see other accounts coming in and it's like, oh my God, this is yet another account that will appeal to someone where they say, oh, that's me. That story is my story. Or this account over here, oh, that's me. That story resonates with me. And so it's just about feeling that representation that makes it it's crucial. It's just a critical piece.
Yeah, absolutely. How about you, Kirsten?
Yeah, I think it's very important for us to have, our own sober spaces because we understand each other's traumas. You know, there are discussions that we have that a white woman would not be able to understand. They haven't had that experience. You know, the racial microaggressions that we experience. You know, we need to have that space to be able to come together and be able to have those discussions and uplift each other. You know, we understand each other's stories. So
Absolutely.
I think that's important.
And that leads to a good question from one of the readers. Is there something unique to the minority recovery experience?
Ooh. Kirsten, you want to tackle that one, or?
Go ahead. I'll let you.
I just want to say, absolutely yes. I mean, of course. I mean, racism is trauma. There's no way around that. There's absolutely no way around it, and just the fact that racism exists obviously makes the experience unique because it's a traumatic experience.
And we carry that trauma generationally. You know, we carry that, you know, down the line. What the trauma that our ancestors went through, we're going through that trauma. You know, it's in our genome, you know. So, you know, that's what's unique. You can't take racism out of being included in the sober space. You can't. And it's a very vital topic. I know some people don't think it's, you know, it doesn't need to be included, but it absolutely does.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have another question that's just kind of a general sobriety question. How can you avoid the pitfall of feeling deprived when sober? Do either of you want to pick up that one?
The pitfall of
feeling deprived when sober.
Deprived.
I think that, you know, I was talking about this earlier today and about how just because there's a chance that if you don't quit, right, that you can still live a long life. Like there's no guarantee that if you don't quit, you're going to die. There's no guarantee. You may live a long, miserable time. You know what I mean? And so so I think that what you have to do is look at how meaningful you want your life to be.
Right.
And that meaning is what kind of trumps everything else. It's like I want my life to have meaning, and there's and that kind of takes care of this feeling of I'm depriving myself of something, because you can't really live a meaningful life if you're struggling with any type of substance abuse. They just one just cancels out the other one. So I know for me, when I was getting sober, I had to really think about what do I want my life to mean? What do I want it to become? What, you know, potential do I want to realize? And then this little nagging voice that said, yeah, but you're not going to be able to drink on New Year's Eve, and you're not going to be able to go out and hang out with your friends. That little nagging voice, it just faded because I wanted my life to have meaning.
Yeah, and I think when you're looking at being deprived, I always like to tell people, when you take something away, you've got to fill it with something else. You can't just leave just that empty hole there. So, you know, I in the beginning, like you said, Shari, I was like, oh, I can't. You know, my wedding anniversary was on New Year's Eve, so that was you could imagine how that was. But now I have to look at it as, okay, I can't drink on New Year's Eve, but hey, New Year's Day, I can actually get up and I can function and I can do something fun and I can start the new year, wake up and feel good. So I have to fill that void, with something else. So I think that's huge.
I think getting to the point where you realize you need to stop asking, like, how bad can this get? How much worse can this get? Instead of being like, how good could it be if I stopped with this? You know, instead of like, oh, I'm missing out on this, but what am I gaining? And those things over time, the things you gain, it just amplifies over time. I think that's really key. So another question, how do you feel that social media supports your sobriety? Shari, you want to start with that one?
Oh, sure. I love social media and sobriety. Number one, it makes you accountable. You know, like there is no way that I would, have served a SOAR for 3 years and I wouldn't want to come back and say, oh, hey, you guys, sorry to tell you this. You know what I mean? It for me, it's really made me accountable. At the same time, it's allowed me to be vulnerable. And so when you have people that get it, I mean, just something simple that you can post that we can do hard things, and that post to get 200 likes. It's like people get that that's a struggle for us, and we didn't believe that we could do something difficult. Or you just post, keep going. I know it's in the middle of a pandemic and this is hard shit. You know what I mean? That people understand that how many liquor stores have I had to pass to get home and keep going in the middle of knowing that, all this other stuff is going on. And so I think it holds you accountable, but it also gives you an opportunity to really be vulnerable about stuff that only we understand. Yeah. Only we, I mean, even my partner who's supportive does not get it, just doesn't have, they just don't get it. And so I think it's being able to have that accountability, but also be able to be vulnerable with people that get it. They understand.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. It's one reason why I created my account is because, like you said, I knew if I didn't put myself in front of people and say, hey, I don't drink, that I would slip a drink in, so it was about being accountable. And it's like you said, it's something about, especially during this time of, I know that if I hadn't gotten sober before everything happened, I know I'd be a hot mess. I'd be, I would not be functioning the way that I'm functioning right now. But some days are hard. Some days, you see the commercials, you see the advertisements on social media, and it's hard. In the beginning, I was pretty pissed off that great, this was the year to get sober, Kirsten. You really did it there. 2020, good job. So, it's good to look online and to see others that feel your pain and get it. Because I have close friends that don't even know that I'm doing this tonight, because I'm with people that get it. And that's how it is when I'm on social media. I'm with people that get it. So it makes all the difference.
Yeah. And I feel like this pandemic has shown a need that was there that we didn't know was there. Like now there's all these virtual meetings now, there's all these groups popping up. And I feel like it's created the ability for more connection that maybe we were all out there kind of like, hey, I'm here, I've got the sober account. And now it's like, okay, we need to actually like get together online. And like my favorite people are on Instagram. Like it's great. It is. It's like totally, you're so right when you say like someone who gets you, and you can just say one thing and they just know, like, yep, been there. Like, yeah, I understand. I've been there. And I was leading a meeting this morning, and I think anyone who stays sober this year should get, AA does like the coins. I have a bunch back here, a whole thing of coins. We should get like medallions, like the For Olympic medal pandemic sobriety medallions. So I'm going to look into that. I think that's a really good idea. Okay, we have another question here. This is a good one. How do you recover and flourish after experiencing trauma? Who wants to start with that one?
I can start with that one. I can say, for me, my first year sober, I experienced a lot of trauma. I had a lot of grief. And I think, being able to manage grief without drinking put so many things into perspective. And so I think the first time you have to go through something traumatic, sober, it's traumatic. You know what I mean? It's really, really difficult. You know, crying for the first time sober is difficult because, you know, I used to, you know, cry when I was drinking, and you just, you're drinking through it. It's not the same. You're not really feeling the emotions. So I think that the first time you go through something traumatic sober and you get out to the other side, there's this feeling of, you know, accomplishment in a way, like, oh, that didn't kill me. That's something that I could do. And I think that the more you do it, because life is hard. Life is, I mean, sometimes we expect too much out of life. Life can be difficult.
Right.
And I think each time you make that accomplishment, sometimes the flourishing is just inward. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's just a feeling of, man, I did that. It's not always this grand, big thing that happens where, you know, the rainbow comes out and all the stuff is magical. Sometimes it's just a tiny acknowledgement that lets you know that I'm stronger than I thought I was. And so I think that each time you string together those successes, you begin to flourish, and you begin to flourish first from the inside. And then the other little things, you know, they just trickle in. They just start to pop up in life, and you can say, oh, I appreciate that. That thing happened that might not have happened if I was still drinking, or that relationship started to bud and grow because I'm not drinking or using anymore. So I think it starts with inward, and then it just kind of grows out.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that inward. How about you, Kirsten?
Yeah, I think also reaching out, you know, when you need to, just not trying to weather whatever storm you're going through alone. That's one thing I've definitely had to learn. I'm a very inward. I can do it myself. You know, I don't need any help. Just let me just deal. And I think reaching out and really allowing somebody, you know, to help you work through it is important too.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. Asking for help. It goes back to that asking for help.
Yeah,
that can be kind of a bitch, but it
ain't easy. It ain't easy.
Yeah, I
think
these
it's
grand. Go ahead.
I was just thinking about our answers are so different. It's almost like we need to do a coaching session together, because I'm over here saying life is hard, you know, and Kirsten's saying you need support. I mean, it's just it's a
but life's hard, and then you need support. I mean,
That's right. It kicks you down, and then you need somebody to help me up.
I love it.
Oh, but it's true. It's both, right? Because you stop drinking, and then it's not like, you know, where's my unicorn to sweep me up and like ride me off into the sunset? All of a sudden it's like, oh, that's why I drank. That feeling that is now coming up that I'm not drinking away. Now I got to deal with that. So it's like
once that pink cloud goes away.
Yeah, one thing and another thing, and then you deal with it and you get through that sober, and you get through that sober, and it's just putting the pieces of the puzzle together always, and just always not drinking. That's just not picking up that drink. There is another question here. Is there anything you wish white folks on the same journey of being mindful or sober would do to be better allies and support people of color?
Wow. Go ahead, Shari. Do you I have to, you know.
Yeah, we want to. That's what we want. We want to hear it.
We just want to feel safe. You know, we want to feel safe. I think it's important, like we said at the beginning, I think it's important for white people to educate themselves. Please don't depend on us to educate you. You know, we're tired. We got a lot to deal with already. So, you know, I think that's important. I think not just giving us the space and just making us feel like ornaments, you know, because we're the flavor of the month. Just, you know, really really honor our stories. Let us, keep amplifying our voices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When I this was right before I had quit drinking. I was belligerent. But I remember posting something, and it was right after Trayvon Martin was killed, and I posted on Facebook to all of my white friends, you need to start every conversation with me by saying I'm sorry for your loss. Like I was so angry, and surprisingly, I had some white friends that said, you know what, I'm sorry for your loss, and I think I meant that. I think that when you look at the number of people that we continue to lose, that I think part of being an ally is to really to have compassion, just to really truly have compassion for what we're going through as a community. I think that's just a great place to start, is to just be able to say, even if you just say silently, I mean, you don't have to DM me and say it, you know what I mean? But to really acknowledge to yourself, like, damn, I'm really sorry for this loss. I can't imagine. And I think that it starts there, and then all the other things of, educating yourself, being humble, not centering yourself, all that stuff comes after. But I think really just being able to acknowledge that this is happening, I think that's a great place to start towards allyship.
That's really powerful, because I think for a lot of us, it's like, it's a reminder that this is not new. This is trauma that the Black community has been experiencing always. And it's re-traumatizing every time. Every time there's a George Floyd and there's a Breonna Taylor. I mean, it is re-traumatizing every time. And it's not just that one thing. I posted about George Floyd, and I went to the march, and now I'm done. Like, this is your guys' life.
Yeah.
Kirstin, go ahead.
Yeah, I remember when we sat down as a family, and it took us forever to watch When They See Us on Netflix, because it wasn't a show where we could just, for us, it wasn't a show where we could just sit down, get some popcorn and enjoy. We had to keep pausing, and having these conversations. These are your rights. You're 14, but you're a 14-year-old Black boy. But these are your rights if you go walking with your friends and a cop pulls you over and starts questioning you. What you see here, I want you to do this instead. It's just that's our life. That's what we have. That's what we have to do. We have to have some very, very difficult, draining conversations, that others don't have to have. So, like you said, we just need that, just that acknowledgement, that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's hard enough to send a teenager out into the world right now, and to not even have that mental, I can't even imagine the mental energy in addition to all the other stupid things teenagers do, to worry about, but just the way they look, that is something you have to parent to. It is something that to get your head around, that I never thought of as a parent. Once you have these children, like, that's never something I've had to parent. So it's, that's why I love these conversations, because it does, these are not comfortable conversations, but that's what needs to happen, because that's the only way I can understand and empathize and really see. And that brings me actually to another question, which, we kind of started, but how would you, or do you talk to teens now based on your own personal experiences, and really, like, through sobriety, and like you touched on specifically, also, having a son who's of color, and how do you talk about that experience?
I know for me, I have a 14 and 17-year-old, So they were very aware, of my drinking. They were very aware of it. So I made it a point, when I stopped, that they knew. I just didn't remove the alcohol. I told them why, it was being removed, or why it's being, put in a different place. They understand. They get it. We have those hard conversations. I've had to explain why you heard me throwing up, or why you heard this or you heard that, so yeah, but we're one of those parents that are pretty open. Probably some people would say we're probably too open. Our kids would probably say that, with our conversations, but we're very open and honest with them about, alcohol and, what it means. And like you said, especially, if they're out, they're driving around, they're intoxicated, they're drunk, what that could mean for them versus what that might mean for somebody else that looks different from them,
Absolutely. How about you, Shari?
Well, I don't have children of my own. But I think that when you're talking to young folk about, alcohol, is that you can show them the progression. And so I always love it when I don't go to a lot of meetings now, but when I used to go to meetings, I always loved seeing a wide range of ages. So you see someone in there that's 18, and you see somebody that's in their 20s, and somebody in their 40s, and somebody in their 70s. And it's like just being able to say to them, you're looking at the progression, right? Do you want to be, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, my little earbud fell out. Do you want to be 70 still working on this, right? Because I mean, it's right here in front of you at 18, 25, 30. And so I think just being able to talk to them really candidly and openly about, this is something that's progressive, is what I try to do.
And, when I was growing up, the when you were 21, you drank, it's just what you did, I didn't see options of not drinking. I never heard anybody say, oh, I don't drink. I never heard of gray area drinking. I never heard of, all of these steps, that can happen. So I can have these conversations and educate them on things I wasn't educated on, that I'm just being educated on now with alcohol. We'll have random conversations about what alcohol actually does to your body. I never learned that from family. I never learned that in school. I didn't know, what alcohol was comprised of, or what it does to your body, or the fact that it's okay for you not to drink at all.
I think
that's such a good point.
Yeah, that's one of the most powerful things, I think, because I didn't realize how much my kids actually noticed I was drinking until I stopped drinking. And so that, was very eye-opening. And also to show them that option, that, it's not a required rite of passage as an adult. You can drink when it's legal, sure, or you cannot. And that concept, like that was never a concept I was ever taught or was ever open to me. And I didn't have parents who drank. So I do think, like, as a society, I think we are doing a better job. We're educating ourselves more on it. And, that, of course, will trickle down to our kids and the next generation. Let me see if I have any more questions here. Okay. This isn't exactly a question, but a comment, but I think it's still good to mention. I'd like to see more white people having those uncomfortable conversations, pulling people up and educating fellow white people. How do you feel about that? Because, I mean, if I want, this is a hard one, because if I want the real information, like, I'm going to go to I want to go to the doctor who got the degree, like, from the best college, right? I don't want to go someone who learned from someone who learned from someone else, who learned from someone else who isn't really, who doesn't really know. So how do you feel about that idea of, yes, I mean, it's not any no woman of color, it needs to be your teacher. But how do you feel about just white people educating each other, and how just that's what I'm going to leave to you. I just want to know, like, how do you feel about that question?
It's a good question.
Good question.
Yeah, I think that it's probably good for white women to have their own dialogue. I mean, just like it's good for us to have our own dialogue. I mean, I think it's good. I think it's healthy to be able to, because you still have your own experience, and just like you don't understand all of our experiences and we don't understand all of your experiences, I think that you do have to be able to have healthy dialogue and hope that there are enough of you that will call each other out when you need to. And for lack of a better word, not coddle. I think that you have to be able to say that was inappropriate.
Right.
Yes.
Right. That really shouldn't have to come from me. You know what I mean? There's enough going on, and there's enough educating going on now where it should be able to come from another white person. That, you know what, that was really out of line. You shouldn't have done that.
Yeah. And to take that education and do something with it. When somebody calls you out, to actually take that in, do your research, and not go into defense mode automatically.
Yeah, actually apply it.
Apply it.
And
because application is everything. We don't really care how many Black friends you have or how many, what TV shows you really like that had a whole Black cat. We don't care. We just want you to apply the education that you've been given and to do the research, and you can have your conversations amongst each other. But and
I think it's important too. Like, I think we do have a culture, a little bit of the negativity. It's like, don't come in here with my negativity or with your negativity, and I'm going to block you if you don't say what I want. If I don't like what I hear, and yes, if someone's coming in and they're just being rude and telling you they don't like your clothes or whatever, when it's superficial stuff, go ahead, block that jerk. But if someone is insinuating that maybe you're doing something that's racist or inappropriate or discriminatory, that you should probably listen and not tell them why they're
absolutely wrong.
Yeah,
you absolutely should listen. There's no debating. If you are offending, someone that doesn't look like you, then there's no debating that.
Yes, their opinion
none
is
at
the
all.
one that matters.
Exactly.
Absolutely. I think that's such an awesome point. I think that's so important. So let's see, we've got our, wow, I can't believe we are almost done. We have 2 minutes left. And so I'm going to go with the last question for both of you. What's the coolest thing about your sobriety? And Shari, you go first.
Oh, wow. The coolest thing about my sobriety, quickly, is just my potential. Just being able to know that my potential was always unlimited, but I think now I can actually realize some of it. So for me, that is absolutely the coolest thing.
I think for me, it's going to be clarity. I spent so long fogging up everything and thinking I couldn't do certain things. And I think just that clarity, it's amazing.
I love that. It's such a gift. And it's such a gift, the community, and to be able to connect with women like you and to be on platforms like this. And I have enjoyed this conversation so much. And I hope it's been helpful to people listening. It's helpful for me. I hope it's helpful for people to know that you don't have to be afraid of asking questions and being open, and really it's inviting, having compassion. It's all the same things we want as humans. That's what we all want. And so show that to your fellow sober person on Instagram. And so thanks, ladies. I've loved chatting with you.
Likewise. Thanks for having us.
Yes.
All
Thank
right.
you so much.
This was fun.
Yes, it was. It was.